Thank you, Mary Beth. I'm Mary Jo Roney. I'm alcoholic. Holy cow, I got a Kleenex, but I didn't think I'd really use it, and I'm already tearing up. So thank you for that beautiful introduction, Mary Beth. I hope I deserve that. I would like to thank District 05, Area 74, and the committee for inviting me to be here this morning. What a privilege. The ASL interpreters, thank you for being here. I'm so glad that our area has, evolved to be able to encompass more people. And that's such a blessing for all of us. The tapers, and I guess you can kind of tell how old I am because I bet you they don't tape anymore. But the people who are recording the meeting today, thank you. I grew up in Alcoholics Anonymous listening to speaker tapes, and it just gave my recovery, I think, a bigger depth. And so I love speaker tapes and listening to talks. And our speakers from Friday night, Catherine and Carrie, they did such a beautiful job at, talking about recovery, and Carrie particularly about, really describing what alcoholism is. And, so they laid a really nice foundation for me to, follow up with. So I do have a sobriety date. It's October 6th, 1996. I have a sponsor, and I sponsor other women, and I have a home group. My home group is the Custer AA group. We meet on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Right now, they are not meeting virtually, they're meeting in person. And because of some health concerns, I'm not able to be there in person, but I have been attending at least 3 Zoom meetings a week. So, I've kind of continued that part of my foundation that I received when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. And so just to qualify just a little bit, I started drinking when I was 14. And the very first time that I put enough alcohol in my body to have an experience, I did experience that total psychic change. My perception of what was going on around me changed. It went from hostile and scary to I was totally at ease and comfort, and I felt like I was a part of, and I felt like I belonged. That change in my personality was the thing that really hooked me when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, and my sponsor started taking me through the book, because I'm a pretty high bottom drunk. I didn't ever have any legal consequences. I was only arrested once, and I was innocent, so that was off the table. So I had a job, I had a husband, I had a home, I had, my driver's license. So to me, I didn't fit the picture of what I thought an alcoholic was, but I was having a lot of problems in my life, in every area of my life, at work, at home, with my family, and with myself. I hated who I was. Every year I drank, I became less of the person that I wanted to be. And that attaining that became farther and farther and more impossible for me to grab a hold of. When I was a young girl, I had all these ideas and aspirations and dreams for the future. And by the time I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I was not able to, none of those things were a possibility in my life. Every year I drank, I like I said, I got further from the person I wanted to be, and I'm not going to bore you with a whole bunch of drunk log, but I will highlight a few things that happened to me that were my very best thinking when I was drinking. So to start out, my very best thinking thought that I needed to get out of my house as soon as possible because my parents were the problem. So when I was 17 years old, I got married for the first time. And I thought that that was going to solve all my problems. I thought that was the answer. It took me about 2 or 3 weeks to realize that that was a mistake. And when I went home and was telling my parents about this huge mistake, what they said was that, marriage was was challenging, and it would take time to learn how to kind of settle into that life and do that give and take and be a grown up. I never done anything grown up. What I heard them say is, we just spent all this money on this wedding, and our payoff is grandchildren, so you need to stay there until your debt to us is paid. So I went back to that marriage, and I was a terrible wife. The selfishness and self-centeredness and self-pity and that resentment and living a retaliatory life all was in full blossom for me by the time I was 17 years old. And so my husband thought he was getting a wife, and I thought I was getting a party. So there was a problem, and that didn't last long. Through my drinking, I hurt a lot of people. I didn't hold people in very high regard. It was mostly about what you could do for me. And so an example of that was, I was in the bar one day. I was a bar drinker. I loved drinking in the bars. And I was drinking in the bars, and it was afternoon, middle of the afternoon maybe. So it was me and the bartender. And a group of people walked in the bar, and they sat across the bar from me. And there was a young woman there, and she bought me a drink. So the bartender brings this drink over to me. Now, I know what that means when that's going on with a man. That means my date for the night. But I'm not gay, and I have nothing against, I just have no opinion about that. But for me, it was like all of a sudden I was, just catapulted into this where I had to make this choice. Like, okay, I'm not gay, but could I be gay? Because this woman bought me a vodka gimlet, and I thought, wow, that is like a big time drink, not just a quarter tapper. She's looking to really put out. So what do I do? What do I do? And it's like, I'm drunk off my butt, and I'm trying to make these split second decisions. And she gets up and she walks over to me, and I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I had decided that I was going with her because, I didn't care if I presented myself in a false way. I don't care if I'm lying to you and I'm going to hurt you. I don't care about any of that. I care about the next drink. And that's what she looked like to me, is a big walk-in vodka gimlet. And she gets over to me, and she's like 3 feet away from me, and it's my sister. And I'm just like, shoo. I was so relieved, because it's like, oh my God, now I can drink and I don't have to decide, I can just, and, so 2 things is, I don't care who I hurt, but also it was my sister. I didn't recognize my sister. It's like, I just kept distancing myself from my family, because every time I got by them, although they never said anything to me and they never questioned, I never questioned that they loved and cared about me. But in my head, that guilt and remorse and like, feeling less than, everything they said seemed like an accusation to me, or just like this place, like putting me down, like I'm not good enough. And that was, here, my problem is, I have a perception problem. And I've been listening to Clancy's talk on disease of perception. And, that tape has not gotten old in 24 years or 23 years. That has not gotten old, that message. And so I know that, what's really happening around me probably isn't really what's happening. And for me, that is what makes having a sponsor so important. I got a sponsor when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. And she started taking me through the book, and she started, you know, I started to learn about alcoholism, and I could identify with it. I knew myself to be alcoholic despite, you know, all my high regard of myself. I just knew that I had to do whatever it was going to take to stay away from that first drink, because the first drink was going to trigger that allergy, that abnormal reaction, and my obsession of mind was going to keep me going. And so I knew I needed just, you know, to just stay away from that first drink. But how do you do that? How do you do that when you're a daily drinker from, you know, for over 20 years? I used alcohol to get through life. And so I did not know how to get through life sober. So I had a lot to learn when I came here. And the reliance on my sponsor to help me navigate through those things was just, it was immense. I mean, I'd call her and, you know, tell her what was going on, and she'd walk me through it. And she'd give me some suggestions of some different actions that I could take. And eventually I started to build up a series of actions that were different than the ones I'd been taking my whole life. And as a result of that, and as a result of the steps and doing inventory and sharing that and starting to make amends, I started to have a sense of relief when I was sober. I had, it took about a year for the obsession to leave me. But once it did, it was just amazing to me that I could go through a day or go into a situation and not feel like I needed to drink to get through it. So the amends were such a powerful step for me, because, you know, I was going into it thinking I had this, I had my 8-step list, I had my cards with the names on them and what I had done. And, you know, I was going to approach these people and make amends. And I talked to my sponsor, and I thought I really had all that, you know, I was good to go. And what I started to realize when I started doing that is that I had this laundry list of all the things that I did, but I did not know the mental and spiritual ways that I hurt people. And as the result of the way my sponsor had me do my amends, I started to learn about that. And one of the things that really just stood out to me in my amends step was, I was probably 5 years sober, and my two sisters and I went out. My brother was retiring from the Navy, and so we went out to be with him for that. And, you know, we were sitting around one night having dinner, and we were talking about what it was like when we were kids. And my sister Janet started talking about what it was like to live in our house with me drinking. So my drinking caused a lot of problems in our home, mostly because when I get a belly full of booze, I was like not afraid of my dad anymore, and I couldn't like keep my mouth shut. So what would happen is, you know, I'd be out, I'd be breaking curfew, I'd be coming home all messed up. My dad would be waiting for me. And I tried to navigate that two ways. One is I would try to say, look, I'm really tired. Can we talk about this in the morning? That never worked. Or I would get right in his face and tell him how I was old enough to make my own decisions and I didn't need him running my life. And that didn't work either. And my dad was not a violent man at all. But because of the way that my attitude and my interaction with him, and I'd get there and I just wouldn't shut up, and I pushed him to become a person he wasn't. And so there was some violence in our home with him and I. And, you know, anyway, so my sister was talking about that, and she was talking about, because she probably was like maybe 10 at the time. She was talking about how she'd be so scared. She'd lay in bed and she couldn't fall asleep until she'd hear me come in, and then she'd just wait. because she was afraid that my dad was going to kill me. And so she said once she'd hear my bedroom door close, she'd know it was going to be okay and she could go to sleep. And when she was talking about that, she was talking about that like it happened yesterday, not 20 years ago. And I got a really good dose of what damage I caused to people that I didn't even know about, totally unaware, you know, never gave it a second thought. They were just the kids, you know, the kids, them in the house, you know, I mean, so, you know, I had a lot of amends to make that weren't direct. They were they were direct in a way because I had to change how I was acting and how I was coming to things. And I remember always feeling slighted, you know, feeling less than. I have my one sister, Barb, and I love her dearly, but she was on my resentment list a ton because she was perfect. She was like the good daughter. And so I just always felt like, you know, as the good daughter, she made me look bad. And of course, you know, you gotta resent somebody like that, and what the heck. And so they compensated. I'd say I was going to be there and I wouldn't show up. So when I started showing up in sobriety and I wanted to be a part of like these gatherings, and I wanted not just to be a part of, I wanted to be an important part of. So when they be, you know, given the list of things to bring for the party and I would get the bag of potato chips, I was highly insulted. I thought, come on, I am sober now. I mean, really? And I'd go to my sponsor and I'd be complaining about that. And she'd say, you know what, Mary Jo, just bring the potato chips. Just do what they're asking you to do. And after about 7 years of bringing potato chips, one day my sister called and said, you know what, I have to work overtime, and I know I said I'd bring the cake, but I'm not going to be able to get that done. Can you bake the cake and bring it? And it's like, oh my God. I was so thrilled and I felt so much pressure like to make that perfect. But you know, it's like I want reward from my intentions. And what the program has taught me is that, you know, if my actions are consistent, I will receive rewards, and maybe they'll look really different than I thought from the beginning, but I always receive more than I give. So, you know, I've tried to stay really active. When I was 1.5 years sober, I got involved in the general service structure, and I served at our district and my group, and got involved in area. And I have to say that my heart is just so full. As I look through this screen, I kind of cruise through the screen of people who were here, and there's so many of you that were here when I first started coming around. And there's so many of you here that I've served in general service with. And I just feel like that part of my sobriety gave me something, I could never replace it, ever. I didn't believe very highly of myself, and I didn't really think that I could, you know, really ever be of meaningful service. But the people in Area 74 just, you know, they just scooped me up, and they just got me in the middle of this, you know, recovery river, and they showed me what to do, and they helped me. I hope, you know, that I didn't do much damage while I was in service there. I highly respected the people of our area that I had the privilege to serve in a lot of different areas. In 2014, I was elected as delegate to the area, and had that great privilege. And Brian, congratulations on alternate delegate area chair. You are in for a wonderful, wonderful ride. And I know you've always been involved in service since you came, so it's not anything new for you. But, you know, one of the things that I learned was, because I'm bossy, I'm really bossy, and I love to be in charge. Control is a huge defective character for me, but it's because it makes me feel whole. When I'm like in charge, I feel whole, and when I'm not, I have to rely on God. I have to rely on God to fill that hole and to make me feel full. And that isn't always my first inclination. You know, I was raised in a family where you rely on yourself. Pull up your bootstraps, get it together. You can do this. And so the whole journey that I've had in Alcoholics Anonymous to connect with the God of my understanding more than on an intellectual basis, but on a, you know, on a spiritual basis, on a real basis, that reliance can tap in to the power of God and give me the abilities and courage to take actions that I sometimes don't believe I have the ability to do. So, you know, service was just, I mean, it's been a huge part of my recovery. So in 2018, my husband had been retired for a few years, and so we'd had some property out in South Dakota, and it'd always been our dream to live out here. And I was able to retire from my job, and we came out here and we started building a house. And I thought, again, I was prepared and I was ready. I mean, I had it all together, man. I was many years sober. I had a sponsor I was actively in a relationship with. I had women I sponsored. You know, I just finished like a certain, you know, kind of a long stretch, or like 16 years of service in the general service structure. I thought I had it together and I was fully prepared. I was totally unprepared. Oh my God. And it's been the hardest thing I have ever done. I truly left my heart in Area 74. And even though, you know, I know all the things that I need to do, I know it in my head. You know, that disease of perception, its self-knowledge will not avail, it avails us nothing. Half measures avail us nothing. So everything I think I know, it didn't serve me well. It kind of failed me. And the one thing that did serve me well was sponsorship. Having a sponsor who could, despite my, you know, just, I was so sure that my perceptions were right. She was able to just lead me through that. She did not get in the boat with me. So when I called her and told her like how exhausted I was, because we were working 7 days a week from early morning to late at night, I was totally freaked out by power tools, hammers, you know, scaffolding, roofing. I mean, it's just like, oh my God, if I breathe any more sheetrock dust, I think I'm going to drop over dead. You know, I was bruised from head to toe, you know, so when I'd call her to tell her about that and tell her how exhausted I was, she would say, so, you know, what meetings have you been getting to? You know, are you getting to 3 meetings a week? Do you have phone numbers for the women? There's got to be women there. And in Rapid City, we were living in Rapid City while we were building. There's a ton of meetings. There are a ton of people in recovery, solid people in recovery. But you know what? My case was different, and I bought into my own perceptions. It's different. They don't really like me. It's, you know, there's no like home group ethic like I grew up with, where, you know, we were all together. We loved and cared about each other. We spent time, we traveled, we listened. If someone was talking, we were all there. it's like you don't miss your home group meeting. I mean, it's just like I had such a connection with my home group in Eau Claire, and I was having trouble here. I mean, I really was struggling. And there was a point when, and I just got mired in self-pity. And I got to a place where it's like, it was almost paralyzing. Like I was able to go to meetings. I mean, my sponsor's voice was louder than mine. So I'm so grateful for that, because there was just so much that I went through over these last couple of years, that if I didn't have that surrender to letting somebody else rearrange my perception, I was scared I was going to drink again. To tell you the honest to God truth, when I imagined myself living in my house in Custer, standing at my front window looking out into my meadow, I envisioned me with a drink in my hand. I just thought, how am I ever going to do this? I can't do this. And I just can't do this. Because all of a sudden I was so, I was scared. I was really scared. And so my sponsor I have regular call times with her, and she just saved me. Because she kept me in the flow of the foundation of regular meeting attendance, of regular step work, of, minding my own business, and letting my husband do his deal, and trying to stay out of all of that, and just really trying to focus on, are there new women in the meeting? Can I give out my phone number? Can I try, offer sponsorship? Can I, what can I do here to live in that foundation that I grew up in? It's like, it's really easy when everybody around you is doing what you're doing, or you're trying to do what they do, I guess is that, it's just like, I didn't have to do, it wasn't work for me. It was just like, I just had to show up and follow. And then I came here, and all of a sudden I needed to be a leader. I mean, I needed to take all the things I'd been talking about for 20 some years, and I had to start to put it into practice. So, again, at that time, it's like, it's amazing how heavy that phone is. It is amazing how hard it is to pick it up and call a new person, a new woman that I don't know, but I've met at a meeting, and to try to establish some new relationships and friendships. I have to tell you that I have done that, and it has, again, what a blessing. So I have some relationships with the women in recovery, both here in Custer and in Rapid. I regularly attend meetings. I try to be of help. We don't have a lot of newcomers. We're a pretty little town, but there's some things that I can do to be able to make myself available, and my group didn't have a GSR. My home group didn't have a GSR. And so, I checked with the service structure in South Dakota, because I was thinking, I've served as delegate. I should not be serving as GSR again. But, nobody was doing it, and they kind of had a desire to have some representation in our service structure. So I said, oh, okay, I'll do it, as long as it doesn't violate any of your Maltese traditions within your area. And it seems that it hasn't. So today I'm going to a district meeting, and I'm riding with a friend of mine, and we're going together. And so Brian, we were talking before the meeting, Brian P. and I, we did a lot of road trips together. Marty, we've done a lot of road trips together. I mean, it's just, and I love that. That's like that is Brian and Dave. And we just, we just get in the car and we go, and we just do it, and And I get the privilege to continue to do that. I'm so grateful. It has been such a pleasure seeing so many familiar faces. And I guess that I'm going to wrap that up right there. So thank you for the privilege of being here today.
Thank you, Mary Jo. I'm always moved when you speak. But I think what really started the connection I had today, and is besides all the other ones we have, but the one today was kind of you know, when I didn't see my harm to other people. You know, it didn't seem as flagrant. You know, like stealing money or, you know, those kinds of things. And so I'm really grateful for your guidance in that, and for reminding us that sometimes our harms are not as apparent as they are at other times. So thank you again for sharing with us. And so now we will have Natalie H. read the 9th step promises.
Good morning. My name is Natalie Hanson and I'm an alcoholic. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experiences can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them.
Thank you, Natalie. I want to thank everyone for attending. I just sort of glanced through the screen and I see both out of state and out of country attendees. So really, thank you all for being here.